Light as Fuck. Happy Wednesday. We're back in person.
Back and better than ever.
It's just this, like, I don't know, energy we have when we're together. I mean, like, our Zooms are fun, but also, like, when you're here, we can actually have a conversation.
Well, I feel like, too, like, listening back to the episodes, there's a delay. Mm-hmm. Or I'll cut you off because I don't know you're about to start. And it's not bad, but it's not as organic as this.
We just bounce off of each other.
Yeah.
And you can't do that on Zoom. Zoom does not allow any bouncing whatsoever. Anyway, we have a super, I wouldn't say fun, but I think relevant and interesting episode for you guys today, talking about when and if you should break up with your therapist. And I think I came home from therapy a few days ago and walked into the apartment and was just like, do you ever think about, like, breaking up with your therapist? And we were like, boom, talking about it on the pod.
That's what we want to talk about. The new year, I feel like people are either getting into therapy or thinking about therapy or thinking about breaking up with their therapist, so it feels relevant.
Yeah. And you were like, same. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to know everything.
I feel like, should we start with our history of therapy?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I feel like our backgrounds are pretty different in that sense.
No, I think that's good. I think
maybe like a trigger warning. I feel like I'm going to be vulnerable about like why I joined therapy. And if you've had suicidal thoughts or have had depression or anxiety and don't want to hear about it, maybe don't listen to this episode.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we're just trying to be as, like, when it comes to therapy for both of us, have to be honest as possible. So for like my quick history, I've been in therapy since I was probably 12.
But like off and on, right?
Off and on, but like I think maybe I've seen one before that. I can't really remember, but my first time like actually remembering therapy, and I was from 12 till 18. I was in therapy, and then it kind of was off and on. Because I self-harmed as a youth, and I think like that really caused a lot of deep conversations in my family that I don't think any of us were well equipped to have. And I think my parents really wanted to like look out for me and didn't know really how to like have a conversation, and we're just like, okay, like therapy. I think my mom was in therapy for her own things that I didn't even know about at the time. And so it wasn't like taboo in that sense. I do specifically remember calling therapy at home, like when we were like eating dinner, like around siblings or my aunts or my grandpa, like other people that lived with us besides my parents, calling it my hair appointment. Like I had to go to my hair appointment. And so like, yeah, I have a history of self-harm and depression and anxiety. And I think that has like carried all throughout my life. And then throughout college, I went to therapy because my parents were getting a divorce, and it was a really tough time for me because it was a pretty nasty divorce. And very, Erica and I have really weirdly enough have a very
parallel lives.
Yeah, parallel lives when it comes to like our parents getting divorced. And it was just the kids being mixed in causes like, I don't know, I went to therapy for it. And then, I think recently the past 2-3 years I've been kind of going on and off because of like life. I think I came back from Australia and dealt with like a pretty like big breakup, and so that was for one reason. And then moving to San Diego, I just wanted to like feel like I was like I had a lot of missteps, and I wanted to like work through some things. And so that's what led me to go to therapy like most recently. And I've been in therapy in San Diego for a little less than a year. Be like coming up on a year. So that's why I was kind of like thinking what's going on. And that's what led me to that epiphany sort of.
Want to break up.
Yes. Maybe, possibly. We'll see. We'll talk about it. What's your history with therapy?
Yeah. I feel like I struggled with my emotions a lot, especially in middle school, I think, as most kids do. And I don't know that my parents knew how much I was struggling. I think they did in a sense. I also feel like it's thought of as like a just typical teenage anxiety, depression, whatever. And I definitely had like some really dark thoughts. I didn't really know who to like talk to. I think being the oldest of 5 kids, I didn't want to be a burden on anyone, but I definitely was like craving attention and like feeling cared for, and I think I sought that out with people and things that weren't the best. But I don't think my parents knew that. So I didn't go to therapy at all until a couple years ago. That was the first time. But I definitely wish that I would have started younger. I think, too, also growing up in the LDS church, like, people in positions of power in the church are thought of as, like, these mentors and these people that you can talk to about things. And it's a lot of, like, behind closed doors conversations. But they're not licensed. These aren't therapists. They have their business job and then they come to the church. And not to discredit them, I don't necessarily think most of their intentions were like malicious or anything. I just don't know that they had the tools to be able to help, especially like seeing my siblings and stuff for what they needed. But yeah, I had a similar experience to Ellie in terms of my parents getting divorced. I think it was in the midst of COVID. I was in a relationship where I felt like it felt very one-sided. As much as I like loved this person, I was just like, what am I doing wrong? I was living alone. I was working way too many hours a week on a computer. I didn't feel like I had a good like support system. Really, the thoughts going through my mind and what kind of drove me to be like, I need help is like multiple times at night, I would be like, no one would notice if I wonder how long it would take to notice if I was gone. Like, no one would know. No one's checking in. I'm begging this guy to talk to me. Like, if maybe people at work would be like, oh, Erica didn't join the meeting. But, like, would they send some? I don't know. That was the spiral I kept going down, and it was scaring me, and I didn't want to like do something drastic, but I didn't know what to do. So that is what made me seek out a therapist. And unfortunately, like a lot of the good therapists aren't covered by insurance, at least from what I found. Or like I would find people online that I'm like, oh, this looks like a good person, and they're full or they're not taking new patients. And so luckily I had a coworker's sister know someone that she went to when she was in college down here and refer me. And that's the only person I've known. I've never had a different therapist. I went to her and I was like, this is what I'm doing. And that's who I've had.
Yeah.
For the last few years.
It's like interesting because I kind of wish that I had this like, just hearing your history, I wish I had more insight on like therapy and therapists and this conversation, considering I've had probably like 10. But I don't know. I don't. That's my thought. I don't really have it. And I mean, it's like, fine. Maybe I do. Maybe like deep down I do. But I just think, I don't know. Therapy's hard. It always has been.
Yeah. I feel like I definitely remember it being awkward in the beginning. And I think something that I'm struggling with, not to fast forward, but like currently is like now that we've built this rapport and she knows my background and like, sometimes I treat it more as like this friendship or like I'm like catching up with a friend than like this is my therapist to like help me. I also don't know that I necessarily have a goal with therapy right now, which I think is why I'm struggling a bit. Because it's like when I went there, I was in like the lowest low of my life.
Yeah.
I'd like had a panic attack. Didn't know what that was at the time. Like I was like, what is happening to me? And so there were all these things, and like every week there were things to work through and like homework.
Yeah.
And right now I'm just like, I don't really want to pay this much money to like chill with you. Yeah. I also feel like I don't know that I'm being 100% honest in my sessions anymore because I don't know what it is. It's like because you're like my friend. Yeah. I don't know.
No, this is all like such good stuff and so similar to how I've been feeling, because thinking back on all the times that I started therapy, there was like a distinct, and this is what I tried to say to my therapist a few days ago, is like every time I entered therapy, no matter when I was 12, 18, it didn't matter. Like something had happened, an event had happened, like my parents seeing that or finding me do that, or like my parents getting a divorce that was like very traumatic. Like, yeah, like an event, then therapy to help this event.
Mm-hmm.
I've been moving my whole life. So like moving to San Diego or being unemployed, like yes, these are like good, decent reasons to like go to therapy or work things out. But like there wasn't an event that's led to the most recent going to therapy for right now. And I think when I first got back to Australia, I was looking for something and I started therapy, and it was with someone that I wasn't really like vibing with. And then it was like for 6 months, and then I moved to the Bay Area and was dealing with like living in the Bay, and that was fine, but I didn't have therapy then. And then I moved to San Diego and was like, oh, this is something that's been important to me my whole life. Like, let's go again. And what I was trying to tell her is like, not that I want a big event, but I just feel like what you were saying is like, do I even have a goal? Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm like, I have been just having a conversation with myself of like, is there things that I still need to work on? And am I like ready to take that step?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I think maybe there are, but I also am like frustrated, and we'll talk about this a little bit. Like I literally wrote a pros and cons list for my therapist because I was like, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me is like, I was kind of hoping at this point she would tell me what like an evaluation on like, this is what I think an issue is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's work on this. Like, you seem like this muscle is weak here, let's work on it. Or not that, hey, you seem fixed, but just like a conversation of like, hey, it seems like we've hit like a limit or whatever. Like, let's take a break and you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if they do that, but like, to end, I feel like all the only reasons why I've left my therapist in the past was because I moved. So I'm like, I'm not moving. So unless I tell her that, so I'm like,
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at. Like,
have you ever had a therapist and like realized that you're not meshing and changed to another therapist, or literally every single time has been because you've moved?
I think there was once when I was 16 when we moved to Southern California and I was switching therapists. She had wanted me to go see a psychiatrist, and I went to go see a psychiatrist and I fucking hated her. Like, I did not like her. And then we went and found someone else because like the therapist wasn't a psychiatrist and couldn't like prescribe me stuff. So then I went with someone else, and then every other time I feel like I've made it work or I moved. The only other therapist I remember not really liking is the one that I had in Nevada most recently. But I was there for maybe 4 months, like 8 sessions, and then I left, which is like a decent amount of time, but it was like, I think what I needed then, but very quick wrap up.
Do you feel like the times maybe you've progressed the most in therapy has been because of frequency, like how often you've gone, or is it because of the person, or both maybe?
So I think it's both. So when I brought this up to my therapist, that's like what she was saying. So I only go to therapy bi-monthly. Is that the right way to say it? No. Wait, then that's not the right way.
Wait, maybe that's right. Like every other week?
Yes, every other week.
Twice a month.
I don't know what the right wording is. I could literally just say every other week.
I think bi-monthly is technically right. In my mind, when someone says bi-monthly, I think every other month.
Oh.
But bi-weekly, I think every other week. Which
Who
is
the fuck knows?
Okay, this is not relevant.
Anyway, so she was saying, like, when you only come that much or that little, the sessions tend to feel like you're catching up, like you were saying with your therapist, because like so many things happen within the 2-week period that you're like, oh, I have to like fill you in on my life, and then the 50 minutes is done, and then you leave, and then so it was like kind of like that. So I don't really know.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me into this like I just want to share this pro and cons list.
Yeah.
And then kind of tie it into this. I'm pretty sure some of our articles are the same, but of just like, I literally Googled like, when do you know when to break up with your therapist, or like signs. And I was reading through, and like some of them like resonate with me, other ones not really. So I just wanted to start off with this one. So I'll do my pros.
Okay.
So not a lot.
Oh no.
And the first one is, at least I'm going. Like
So this is of therapy, not of your therapist.
Yeah, kind of. I did it like all.
Okay.
She's in here too.
Okay.
But like overall, I think the biggest pro right now is like, at least I'm going. I'm afraid that if I cancel or break up with her, I won't be able to find a therapist. No one will schedule me. And then I won't like work that muscle and it won't become important. And like, at least it's something for me to say that I'm doing to work on myself when I'm like acting like a fool. I'm going to therapy, so it's okay.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. I feel validated. I think she understands my history, my like background, the way that who I am. I just feel validated. And I'm a visual learner, and that's like one thing that I had told her about, and she like not goes out of her way, but she like supports that visual learning, which like sounds silly, but like when we do timelines, it's like on a whiteboard or a poster board. Like I just appreciate when people take that extra step.
Yeah.
Cons.
Oh, that's it.
That's it, bros. 1, 2, 3.
She whiteboards and I'm going.
Literally, that's it. Okay. Cons. She is the how does that make you feel therapist. And I'm like, sometimes I think about it, and I don't want to be like, not that social work is the same thing as like being a psychologist or a therapist, but like I went to school to possibly be in therapy. And like, granted, it's only like a social work degree and like whatever, but I'm also like, you can do better than this.
Yeah.
For how much I'm paying you, I don't know. I thought, like, I've had therapists before that like really fucking dig deep. And like, it's constantly, and I'm not even making it up, it's like, I'll ask a question, or like, I'll just be like, I don't know, to everything. I'm like, well, how does that situation make you feel? But like,
that's literally, like, that makes me think of Freaky Friday when they switch bodies and she's not the Lindsay Lohan is no longer the therapist. So
if her daughter switched bodies with her, I would have no idea.
The mom just says, all you need to do is ask them, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. That's this one. And that kind of goes into like not harsh enough, which doesn't seem like the right way I should word it. But like,
I think you need maybe someone who's like brutally honest.
Very much. Because I like build up a very like, I don't know, kind of like wall on my exterior, and like I need someone that's going to be able to like move past that and kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, because I need it. I need like, I don't know why, I just feel like, not that I know that they're going to hurt my feelings, but like, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like too, especially for something like that, it's like another reason you go to therapy is because you want this like unbiased opinion, someone who's not necessarily your friend, who's just going to tell you like, this is what I'm hearing and this is what I think.
Yeah.
Type thing. Not like,
and that's my second thing. She's not personable or direct. She never says that. Like, this is what I'm hearing. Like, let me call you out on your bullshit and repeat back to you what I'm saying, how I feel. You know, like, I think she's trying too hard to, like, not be a person and, like, be a therapist that's, like, removed none of her emotions. But, like, I don't respect that. Like, I want someone to, not that I need to hear her whole spiel, but, like, as a fucking person, what do you hear? What are some commonalities that I need to work on? Are there any? What am I struggling with? Because sometimes, like, right now I feel like the struggling with like a career, but like, what's deeper than that? What's like, I want to dig deeper and she's not. So those are my cons.
So earlier I asked you if you had expressed any of these things to her.
Oh.
Or like asked for, not earlier in the podcast, earlier today. And you said, we'll talk about it. Have you voiced any of these?
So
things?
last episode.
Our life is a podcast.
So last therapy session, most recently, I did, because 2 weeks ago, like at my last one before this latest one, like follow along here, timeline it. This is why we need a whiteboard. She had said, it was like before the new year, still in December, and she had made a comment at the end of like, so like, how are things like going? Like, is this working? Like, do you want to continue into the new year? And like, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. And then as the 2 weeks progressed, and of course, like as the new year came in, I was just thinking like, what is it that I need to work on? I still feel like I'm struggling. I don't know what with. I think I'm not being truthful to myself or in therapy anymore of like what I'm struggling, because I think maybe I'm embarrassed. So I'm just like thinking through all those things. And then I told my mom, like, I think in January I might want to try to find a new therapist. Like, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. So it was already in the back of my mind. And then I was like, well, let's just see how this next session goes. And I get in, and she's like, so what do you want to talk about today? And I'm like, every time it's like, when someone asks me that, I'm just going to tell you what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
Like how the job is going, blah, 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 like life, family. It's like, I wish it was a little bit more, I don't know. Anyway, so or
like something that you expressed as like a problem or a concern, or like you were anxious about something in the last session, like following up on that to start, like, how did that go, or how are you feeling about XYZ?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
But after every time, it's always like, so what do you want to talk about today? And I'm just like, oh, you fucking tell me. But I I don't really say that. And then I really tried to like flip the script a little bit and be like, I feel like I don't know. Again, I was like worried for her feelings. So I really tried to like word it in a way that was right. But she kept on being like, so you're not sure if you want to be in therapy? I don't know. Her leading questions into me saying, well, let me back up, because as like 20 minutes into therapy, I even checked my phone because I was like, where are we at? We were just like talking about the same old thing. And like, finally, I'll like long pause. Like, I'll wait for her to say something, and she won't. And then she'll just like look at me and look at me and look at me and look at me and look at me.
Oh God.
And so finally I'll say something, and that's just kind of like what happened is I was just like, I feel like I'm ready to take the next step, but I don't know what my next step is. I feel like I'm struggling, but I can't pinpoint exactly what I'm struggling with. I feel like I'm not doing therapy right. Like all of these like I statements, and then she would just follow up like, so what I'm hearing is like, you're not sure if you want to like continue with therapy. Like, I think she was waiting for like a point blank answer from me. And I think I was just pushing because I really wanted her to be like, these are the commonalities. This is what in my like professional recommendation is that we continue focusing on your past with self-harm or your past with your family, like the divorce. I think we need to go back and do that. Like, she wasn't really saying anything. So it was just kind of like, we literally ended the session saying like, well, I have a lot of things to think about. Like, I'll be in touch.
Interesting. So you never actually asked her, like, what do you think I should do?
I did.
Oh.
And she was like, I can't answer that.
Oh.
That's for you to figure out.
Oh, that's awful.
And I'm like, is it though? Okay.
Is it awful, or is it for you to figure out?
Is it me to figure out? Because I'm like, I have problems, but like, I don't know if I'm ready to just like full on open the door to a new therapist and be like, I'm struggling with blah, fix it. Like, I don't. Yeah. Not that I need like confidence to do that, but I just like, I don't know if maybe what my problem is. Not that I have a problem, but like, it is what I think it is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I just remember my therapist when I went to therapy when I was like living in San Clemente and in the last 2 years of high school. And she just like was so, the respect there. Like, I looked up to her. She was like a little older, and she just like saw commonalities. Wait,
sorry. There was a bird that just flew into our, so I wonder if that's what attacked your plant.
Why not go for the plant that I have like 12 million of? You're gonna go with the one that is so rare.
Sorry, that just distracted me.
Like, she was just so direct and like, this is what I'm hearing. Not that she was like, this is what I think you should do, but like, kind of just like peeled it back and was just like, this is what I'm seeing. Expose yourself deeper. Like, let's dig deeper. Gave me homework. Granted, I did go. This is the only time in my life that I've ever gone every other week.
Was when you had this therapist?
Yes.
Interesting. So you can compare the like frequency with the therapist and be like, I had way more progress with this other person.
Yes, which I do think plays a role. Which is another question that I've asked myself is like, do I break up with my therapist, or do I just increase the amount of times that I go and move it to once a week with the same person?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just comparing in my head like what you're saying your therapist does with what mine does.
Yeah.
And when you brought this up the other night, And I was like, yeah, I've been thinking about it. And then I went and read the article that you had sent, and it was like reasons why you might think it's time.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I was like, no, I don't necessarily think that this is true for me. I think that, like, I do think she listens. I think she's attentive. I think one thing I'd said, I was like, she doesn't even give me, like, homework. But I think of the times when I've had the most improvement, or when I've been the lowest, she's given me things to do that have helped me improve. Yeah. And I don't know that necessarily every week I need to have, like, a task. I'm kind of spiraling in my thoughts, but, like, I think that there are people that are more human and can be more direct than what it sounds like. You're paying money for that.
I know.
I can do that for you if you want me to ask how you're feeling.
I honestly feel like it would be better. We would get to the problem quicker because you know and you listen.
It seems like someone who's maybe so robotic, or like not really like allowing themselves to be a little bit in your life.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of what you need to do.
I
think that is where, like,
of you.
Therapists cross the line.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fine line there, but I don't think you can really have growth on either end if you're so, like,
far
away. Yeah.
I know. Not that I want a friend, like you were saying, but part of me is like, I kind of wish for that right now.
Yeah.
Of, like, just someone to be like, this is what, sorry, my foot is stuck in the freaking door. Or
flicked the little.
I literally have no feeling in it. That's why.
No, my left, this side of my leg, I'm like.
We just look so much cuter on the floor.
I know, it's just not comfortable.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways, you had said you made a pros and cons list, and I went to make a pros and cons list for my therapist, and I think all of the things that I was like, oh, this is a con, it was a reflection of me, not of her. So, like, I was thinking about, like, oh, I haven't, like, really told her everything. And it's like, how is she gonna know that I haven't told her everything? Or that I'm, like, not being... Because sometimes I'm, like, really embarrassed of things that I've done.
Yeah.
Or I'll, like, bring it in and I'll tell her, like, half-truths of stuff because I don't want her to, like, judge me. And that's on me. That's not on her.
Yeah.
Or I've thought about, like, oh, she's not, like, giving me homework. And I'm like... She has, though, and I haven't said that, like, oh, I want to be working on something. Like, we're talking through things, and I do think she's, like, digging and trying to find, like, areas where I can work on stuff. But I also feel like, so, like, a few months ago, when we were both kind of, like, sad.
Sad girl season.
And I was talking to her about it. I was like, I really, honestly haven't felt, like, this low. I wouldn't say it's the same as when it was when I first started therapy, but that level of just, like, I'm just, like, really sad, and I don't want to talk to anyone, and I don't want to do anything, and, like, she gave me stuff to do. She gave me homework. She, like, had me take a picture of this little card that was, like, just do the next thing, and it was, like, I do well with those little, like, motivational things I can just say in my head. So I'm, like, all of these, like, things that I'm just being critical of her, about her, are my own issue, not her. So I think maybe we should go through the article because it's a good, like, check-in.
Yeah, I agree.
Of, like, is it time? This is what Ellie found on self.com called here's exactly how to break up with your therapist. But the signs that it goes through, the first one says your sessions aren't making you feel better overall. And for me, I feel like even if I go into therapy being like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today, because she's not like, what do you want to talk about today? She asks me, like, she has her notes. She's like, so how are things going with this? Or, like, something I mentioned. And then we talk through. Maybe there's stuff that I didn't even, like, remember or think of or have blocked out. And I still feel better leaving the session than when I entered.
Yeah.
Do you feel worse?
I don't feel bad, but I just think, like, I just don't feel like overall I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the progress I've made in, like, my day-to-day life, she has helped, but also because, like, I've been like, okay, I am doing this. But I think in therapy, I need more than just the can I work up the courage to go look for a job? Can I work up the courage? You know, like I need to face those, and I'm sure therapy will help with that, but I need something deeper. Like there are deeper things that I would want to talk about that I think correlate to those surface level things that I'm talking about in therapy. And I would just like, I thought overall I would be seeing a little bit more, now that I'm older, a little bit more like ripping apart.
Yeah, that's fair.
The second one is you don't feel as though you're growing. Okay, well maybe
it's that one.
Yeah, maybe it's that one.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The third one is you don't trust your therapist, which I feel like I trust her. Yeah. I don't know why I wouldn't. I'm lucky that I haven't had like an encounter where I felt like she's made me feel bad when I've been vulnerable or something.
Yeah. I specifically, the trust and connection piece is so big for me that I will specifically like look for certain therapists at the very beginning of like when I'm looking for therapy. Like I've always, even as a kid, like I never wanted a male therapist. I wanted someone like that has sort of like similar background as me as far as like, you know, do you like, how did you grow up, like your family kind of situation. So those are things that I like look for that I think trust are built upon. So that really hasn't been an issue. I think this one pertains to me as well. It's almost impossible to see your therapist regularly. This I think is more so talking about like the therapists that are impossible to book, like what you were saying. But on my end, it's because of like financial reasons that I didn't go once a week.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, I am down to make that financial choice if it's gonna
be beneficial.
Yeah, be beneficial for me.
For me, it was like, especially when I had to go into an office, I honestly would show up to therapy so drained because I would have to drive from Encinitas down to the therapist's office. She could only meet in her farther office on the day that I could meet. And it's like, I'm glad I still went, but I definitely feel like I would show up late, which would suck because then I'm like paying for time that I'm not using. I would show up not really like having thought through, or like, you know, I feel like you kind of need a second to like be with yourself before you go into those settings if you're wanting to be vulnerable. So I do think sometimes it's like it can be a little bit less helpful when you aren't able to set that up. Like now that I'm not working, I can meet anytime. She can meet on the days when she's in her other office. Like it's great. But it was difficult with work and stuff. The next one is your therapist isn't sensitive to the differences and identity between the two of you. And I thought this was interesting because one thing that I've come to learn about my therapist is that we have similar interests, which I think has been why I'm like, are we friends or are you my therapist? Because she like is really into interior design. She was in finance before she became a therapist. If you guys remember our career episode, like therapist is one of the things on my list and also something I've like thought about. And so I've just found it interesting to like ask her about her path and like what she's done. And I feel like hearing the difference between your therapist and mine is like, I'm glad she's at least able to be vulnerable and tell me things about herself.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't take up the whole session, but when I'm like, what would you do? She's like, well, from my experience, this is what I did.
I know nothing about the therapist.
That's so hard to like want to be more open with someone if you know nothing about them.
Yeah.
Even if you're not trying to be like their friend.
And the second one, we're on like number 6. Your therapist isn't receptive to constructive criticism. It's not that I've given my therapist constructive criticism, but I also am like, I don't want to be criticizing you. Like, not that I want you criticizing me, but like, it's all about me. Like, I want you to be figured it out already.
Yeah.
Or ask. There's not really a space for me to be, to give constructive criticism with her. Like, we don't allow, there's no evaluation, there's no like check-in like that. So yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to be like, let me tell you how to do your job, or have you ever thought, I don't know, I'm not that kind of person, especially in therapy. No way.
I was listening to a podcast by Life Kit earlier today, which in the beginning, it's like they're interviewing a therapist, and she's like, people sometimes forget that like you have full autonomy in this relationship. Like, you're paying for this, and you can say what you want, and you can leave when you want, and you can ghost them if you want. Like, this is your therapy session, and you're not obligated to them. Like, it's not your friend. It's not like this thing that's like, I really don't want to hurt their feelings, which is really hard, because I've had this conversation with other friends before when I've said, like, oh, I don't really know if, like, therapy is really working for me, or, like, I don't know if she's the right one. And then they'll be like, well, have you asked her to, like, give you homework? Have you talked to her about this thing that you're struggling with? Have you told her that you don't? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to be mean. Yeah. But then it's on me when I'm paying that much money, and she can't read my mind. Yeah. You know?
Well, I did bring it up, and she kind of, like, almost kept saying it too much of, like, you're not sure if therapy's for you, you know, like, I hope you know you can switch someone. And it was kind of like, if I wanted to switch someone, like, I would. I'm almost kind of giving you an opportunity to, like, fight for yourself. Like, do you think this relationship isn't working? Because am willing to make it work, but, like, you're not fighting for us. Like, why are you fighting for me? You know what I mean? Like, I almost, like, know my options too much that I'm like, wait, now I'm confused at why. I don't know. Yeah. Like, I've given you opportunity after opportunity. Yeah. And I think for me too, like, I don't know if this is one of on here, but I just thought of it as, like, I don't have to start over. Like, I have to re-explain all the everything. Things. Yeah. Like, what about if you want to focus on the self-harm? Like, not that I'm over that, but, like, that is a part of my life that has been in the past, and I'm very proud of how far I've come in that aspect. I think there are other things that I would like to talk about other than that, but it's like therapists hear self-harm and they're like freaking vultures. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it to you that I'm, like, over it. Not that I'm over it, but it's like, I would much rather talk about something else. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway. One example that in this podcast, if you want to listen to it, I don't know what it's called, but look up Life Kit and maybe, like, how to break up with your therapist. Oh, it's called Deciding When It's Time to End Therapy. But the therapist in there was, like, giving all these examples of how you can do it. Like, obviously ghosting is kind of a shitty way, but you don't necessarily owe them anything. But she was like, you can even, like, email them and be like, hey, like, I've enjoyed our sessions. I don't know that, like, this is working for me anymore. Do you have, based on what you know about me from our sessions, do you have recommendations of another therapist that you think would be good? Because it's like, they're professionals and they're not, I feel like we get caught up. I'm fully guilty of this, of being like, they're going to be so offended. Like, they're never going to want to talk to me again. They're going to be so upset, when it's like, no, this is literally their job. And if they're actually, like, care about people and wanting to help them, they'll be like, yeah, here's some options. Oh my gosh. It's like a testament to how different we are, because my mind goes, like, if I've asked her that and I'm in the same building, like, they're going to talk shit about me. She's going to say stuff, like, to people that she just, like, didn't say to me, or, like, something's wrong with, like, it's both fake and not real.
One thing, so I did this not to my therapist, but, like, I had been telling her about my ex, and, like, I would really, like, love for him to come to, like, a session. Like, I would love for us to have a session together. I don't know that he's willing to do that. And she gave me recommendations for him of people that might be better suited for that. She wasn't making money off that. She doesn't know who this person is. Yeah, I feel like it was just like
a decent thing to do.
Genuine human. Yeah. You know? That's so hard. But the last one on this list is, do you feel as if you no longer need therapy? So I got to the end of this article, and this is when I started spiraling down this other article on self.com called How Can You Tell If Therapy is Actually Working?
Fix me.
And it's pretty long, and it's, like, complicated, because it's, like, really depending on what you went there for, what type of therapy you have, what are you looking for, and it can change over time. It's talking about, and I do feel like one thing that it did say is that you feel like your therapist has given you the tools you feel like your therapist has given you the tools that when similar situations arise, you can think critically and work through these things, or realize that there's, like, the other side. Like how I was explaining in the beginning, I knew deep down that there is like a light at the end of the tunnel. I just didn't know how to get there. And I was so scared and sad and all the things that I was like, I don't know how, I can't do it. But now, like in November, when I was feeling like this really low, as much as I was feeling that, I also knew that like, these are things that I can do to help myself feel better. These are things that I know work. This is like, I know that it's going to be okay. I know that this is just like a part of life. Like, it's a very different thinking than what I had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading that, I was like, not that I don't think there's ever going to be a hard thing in my life again, or that I'm ever going to feel like a really low, but I do feel like I've been able to work through a lot of difficult things, especially in the last year, because of like the tools that she's given me, the books that she's recommended, the podcast, the things. Like, I do think that has been helpful.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's like, not that I never want to talk to her again, but maybe I just don't really need to right now.
Yeah.
Like, until something else comes up that I'm just like, I'm not sure how to work through this, I don't know that I need her.
I think that's great. That was very helpful for me. Like, listening to, so how does it say it? Your therapist has given you tools so that, what? So that you're better equipped for the next time something like this happens. Which, that, going back to what I said about, like, my past when I was young, like the self-harm, like I feel like I have tools for when I'm placed in like those kind of episodes, depressive episodes, again, if I am. Mm-hmm. There are other situations or instances in my life that have like hurt me or harmed me or been hard to overcome that I still feel like I'm hanging on to, that I can't let go, and that if something similar or like it's very like when it's brought up or talked about, like I get like, oh, I don't know, I don't have tools to help me in that situation.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why people go to therapy.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling like you're not even getting tools, or you're not being heard, you feel like you can't be vulnerable. Like, I don't know, it'd be so hard for me to be vulnerable with someone that just asked me, how does that make you feel?
Right.
Or like, when I don't know anything about you, I feel like I can only go to a certain extent. Like, I'll be open probably about things that I talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I've let the world know.
Yeah.
But there's obviously like much deeper, there's these thoughts that are like, I don't share them with people. Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to share that with you if I don't know anything about you.
Yeah. Or there's not going to be any like reciprocation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, and not that I want you taking up the time in my therapy session to tell me your hardships. Right. But like, give me a little something.
Yeah. This is why I needed this conversation, because I was like, am I making it up in my mind of what a therapist should be and how open they need to be or how direct they need to be? And then I started to think, like, do only child therapists do that? Like, it was only because I was young and couldn't, like, do they just automatically I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One thing I just thought of is something that I feel like before I thought critically about my therapist, I would have put on a cons list, is that like sometimes I don't agree with her advice or with the things that she says, but I don't necessarily think that that's bad.
Yeah.
Because she's asked me like, well, have you thought about XYZ? Or like, I used to tell her like, people always say if he wanted to, he would. And she's like, I hate that. I don't think that's true, blah, blah, blah. And like, to an extent, I see her side, but to my experience, I'm like, I do feel like in a way, yes.
Yeah.
Like if they really wanted to, they would make an effort. And her point of view on that was like, if they are barely able to get through the day as it is, barely able to take care of themselves, which is like a point I was at one point, then it's like, maybe they do want to, but they're barely getting through right now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, sure.
But you need those different perspectives.
Yeah.
I can't have someone agreeing with me 100% of the time. I'm going to get bored.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're just like, also too, she'll tell me advice sometimes that I'm like, I already know. I don't need you to say, but it's like, well, why am I getting so upset about her?
That's another thing I forgot to say. I literally told my therapist, I want her to tell me to shut up. Like, I think I do this in almost a lot of like conversations where I'm being vulnerable, and even in the podcast, I find myself how many times spiraling, going into like 70,000 different tangents and not just staying on a direct path that's going to lead me to the point, to the goal, to the whatever. Mm-hmm. And like, I am like that in life. I don't know, maybe it's because my mind is all over the place, But like, I wish she knows this by now, I would think. I don't know. Just tell me to like, shut up. This is important information. Keep going. Like, what is like, and not maybe necessarily tell me to shut up, but like kind of navigate.
Let's go over here and talk about this. Yeah.
And it's like, she doesn't really say anything. So like minutes and minutes and minutes will go by. And like, I'm still talking about how like, I don't have a job because like, yes, in the past, like, yes, that is frustrating. It's so hard. And like, I wanted to give space to that. But I also think like, not a whole session. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not changing that right now. Like, maybe why am I so self-conscious about not having a job? Like, come on. This is like basic shit that I know I can do if I like if I gave myself time to do that. But like, I am not strong enough to do that by myself. Even
it's also like you are giving yourself time and you're asking for this person to meet you there to help you. Yeah,
that's a good point. You're right. That was better.
You're setting aside this hour of your life to try and work through that. And it's not that, I don't think that it's not that you're not strong enough, but it's like some of those things you just need to talk it out with someone, and you need someone to like point out the flaws in your logic or whatever.
Yeah. It's just mundane. It's like we have the same conversation over and over. And I recognize that a lot of that has to do with me. Is like, I show up and when someone asks, what do you want to talk about today? I'm just going to start, say what it is I've been going on, very surface level things. Mm-hmm. But I also like feel that if there is like, I need to do some like introspective work on like, is there a goal? Like, is there something that I need to work on, and just be like brutally honest with myself? Mm-hmm. Which like, just off the top of my head, like, I think the answer to that is yes. Mm-hmm. And like, I think like, if that's the case, I need to like, if I'm gonna want to make it a priority to like figure that, or do a new therapist, or stick with this one, or whatever I decide to do, like also be aware of the fact that like, therapy sometimes leaves you very vulnerable. And like, not that I am expecting to leave like every session making like this great progress, but like, I know there's going to be times, because I remember in the past of like leaving and being like left so wide open that you need like a day to recover, because you just
it can be like draining.
It can be draining, but it's almost like, not that I am like itching for that feeling, but I have not had that feeling since being in therapy this whole time that I've been here. Mm-hmm. Not that that's like fun to have, but it's also like, that's sometimes a milestone of knowing that therapy is working, is when you leave like needing to cry in your car because you just talk, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but it's just like, I'm looking for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I feel like that's also a little bit of why I've been like, why am I still going? Because I haven't felt like these really raw emotions, nor do I necessarily feel like I need to right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like until some big, I don't know, it's conflicting, because it's like, you go to therapy only when you're sad. I don't necessarily think that's true.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
But I also am like, do I need to go as frequently, or should I wait until I've like at least like
this big event again?
Yeah, gotten a job that I am like, here's what I did and let's talk about it. Or like, I'm in a relationship again. I don't know. Like, right now we go, then I'm like, yeah, I like hung out and worked out and did something dumb on Thanksgiving and like, I don't know.
This is what I was trying to like talk with her about. And I even said like, I don't know, like, I'm asking you as a therapist, like, is that true? Mm-hmm. And like, it was like, well, that's something you need to figure out. So I'm like, I don't know. Then do I have these issues like that I need to work through? I don't know. Answer me.
I don't know, Ellie. I'm not a therapist.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, but I think I know what I need to do.
Which is what?
I think I'm gonna break up with her.
How do you think you're gonna do it?
I don't think ghosting, I mean, based on like the conversation, how we left last session, I think it's like, I don't see her again for another 2 weeks, so I have time of like thinking about things, and maybe like talking to my mom, because I respect like what she has to say about this as well, of like what I'm thinking. But I think she's so easy to talk to on their like little website. There's like a chat box or something, and just saying like, based on what we talked about, this is what I'm thinking I want to do. I don't exactly know which direction I want to take, but I think from this specific person, it's not what I need right now. So just somehow nicely putting that in the chat box.
Yeah. Is it with your therapist or it's with... Oh, okay.
Yeah, with that therapist. But I think it's also, I don't know, I'm not going to say no to, like, putting myself out there and saying, like, do you know of anybody that, since you know me, I think that would be a good opportunity. I think it is hard when I don't have, like, a specific goal. But sometimes I wish I could just walk in and be like, this is me. I'm going to lay it all out on the table. Like, can you ruffle through it and figure it out?
Well, I also feel like, too, they should be helping you figure out, like, maybe it's not like, okay, I self-harm, so my goal now is to not self-harm. And I don't think it's necessarily that black and white, or, like, more of, like you said, digging deeper of, like, well, why? Where was that coming from? What did that stem that? What do you have, like, parallels now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would think if you did ask that hopefully she's good enough to be like, these are experiences that I know she had. Here's a person that I know, like, specializes or has a background in, like, working with people who have experienced that. Or maybe they were also in the military or they grew up in, I don't know.
Yeah.
You would think that she would be able to at least make a judgment call in that way.
Well, that's why I'm like, the other part of me, I know I just said had it figured out, but is it worth me just being honest with myself and coming up next session being like, this is what I want fixed, or that's not the right word, but like, this is my issue.
These
this
are
is
the
what
tools
I'm struggling
I want
with.
to be able to get.
Yes, yeah.
For whenever this happens.
And see if she takes that and runs with it. Maybe I'll do that.
Maybe start with that, and then if you feel like the session really isn't going anywhere, then you can be like, do you have any recommendations of people that other therapists that might be able to help me?
I think that's good. I think that's what I'm going to do. We figured it out in less than an hour.
And I don't think I'm going to go to therapy for a while.
Yay! I mean, well, that was weird to assume too, but I mean, like, yay, we figured it out.
Yay! Thank you for coming to our therapy session, everyone. Hopefully you found some gems for you too, if you're thinking about therapy and kind of what you should be getting out of it. There's so many different types of therapy too. Like, I've listened to other podcasts where they've done, like, hypnosis isn't the right word, but something like that, or like rapid eye movement stuff. There's the child work stuff. There's, like, I think that's another thing too. If you're feeling like you're bouncing between therapists and it's all like talk therapy, maybe there is other therapy types that you should look into too, because maybe talking it out just, like, isn't working for you. But we're not therapists, so don't listen to me. But listen to us and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Polite as Fuck Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We got a lot of goals, so please rate and review and subscribe, even if you've never listened. Well, if you're listening to this, you've listened to an episode.
Yeah, hell yeah. Unless you're joining us for the first time, then please just rate and review.
Just give us 5 stars. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya. Happy New Year.
Yay. Bye.